welcome everybody. I'm Sharon Livingston from the International Coach Certification Academy, and the name of the show is Bring On the Biz. And what we do here is sing the praises of people who have a passion for their work. And I've got a bunch of incredible people here that I am really delighted to be introducing today. And I woke up this morning thinking about the fact that we would be introducing these lovely ladies, and what they all do is that they coach people, but they coach people in different things. Unlike going to a life coach, which is a very general kind of thing, each one of these people specializes in a particular part of life and business. And they've all come to this because of their life experiences and a passion that they have for helping people. And to me, the most important thing in the world is helping other people, and I really love doing that. I think it's an incredible thing to be able to do. The thing that I want you to know is that coaching is an amazing career to have. However, when people say that they're a life coach, it's very confusing to people in the world, because nobody wakes up in the morning going, oh my God, I need a life coach. I mean, right? Like, well, what does that mean? But they do wake up with a particular issue they want to deal with. There's something that's troubling them, or that they need to learn, or, take care of. And so these are 8 different women who specialize in a particular avenue. When I woke up this morning, as I said, I was thinking about X-Men and how, like life coach would be Superman, whereas there's Wolverine, and who are some of the other ones? I don't even remember the names.
Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman.
Right. So there are people who, like the Flash has speed, and different people have different qualities. And so when I was thinking about these women, we went around, and we have Cynthia.
Yes.
Her specialty, her superhero name would be Divinity, because she reveals the divine genius and unique talents in every child to help them realize their true potential. And we're going to hear more from her in a moment. And then there's Julie at the other end of the table. She's the Avenger. She's a protector and fighter for patients and caregivers, advocating for both the emotional and logistic care that they need, and they don't get very often. And then we have Renee. Renee is Laser Lady. Renee has a special gift to discern inner pain and strengths in relationships and unify them around a common mission with conflict resolution. And we have Eileen, who is now known as the Dragonfly. And we have lots of stories to tell you about that. She has the gift to communicate messages of hope to the hopeless, strength to the weary, and to inspire caregivers with unconditional love. And she has quite a story that you'll be hearing. To my left is the alchemist, Jane, who has the power to reformulate the unique set of talents and experiences of those in transition to help them realize their maximum potential at work. Now, we also have Jen, the wise Wonder Woman, and she uses her wisdom and experience to help salon professionals create systems that help them realize their potential and achieve their goals. Woohoo, okay. And sitting right next to her is Fran, the super shapeshifter. She has the power to help women in midlife transition to shape and embrace a meaningful and purposeful second act. So cool. And over here on my left is Dolores, who is super marketing girl. And she helps small businesses conquer their markets, finding their message, their mouth, and their voice. And message, mouth, and voice, you'll be interested to learn what those mean. And finally, did I get everybody?
You got everyone.
Right, Claire is missing in action. She was the heavy heart lifter. She lifts the weight of grief with truths and tools that liberate your life, heart, and spirit. But she's missing in action today because she's a little bit under the weather, needed her own heavy heart lifted. So what I'd like to do is introduce these wonderful people. And so Jane.
Hi, Sharon.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I was hoping, as the alchemist, or just as Jane, that you would tell us a little bit about what you do, how you came to coaching, and what your specialty is. Just say a little bit about it.
Sure. Basically, I have a background in human resources. I've worked in HR for about 26 years, mainly at a fairly senior level, but also working as a management coach, leadership coach, working in the area as well of training and development, designing soft skills training and workshops, and delivering those within corporations for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit of your backstory. How did you come to this? And
Well,
why?
how I came to coaching, life is kind of an interesting journey, and unfortunately, about 5 years ago, my mother passed away, and at that point in time, it gave me pause to really reflect on what I needed to do and what I wanted to do, and I'd always thought that I had something meaningful to contribute. And I think that my mother would be very proud to think that I wanted to help other people and take what I've learned along the way and do that within the format that I've chosen. And working with people in transition, I've had a lot of transitions in my life, whether that's from transition of job change or position change from junior to senior level, moving across the country, or even loss of a loved one, loss of a pet. There's so many different transitions in life. A lot of experience there, and a lot of things that I've learned along the way that I think that can really help other people. So that's what I want to do.
And I thought that I'd heard a lot of people come to you for career transitioning.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot in the way of career transitioning, and I've learned a lot of tools and used a lot of tools and techniques over the years to walk people through a greater understanding of themselves, what their strengths are, what their talents are, and how they can really leverage those for their own benefit to maximize what they have to offer and to bring their life forward.
So here I am, and I've come to you because I'm in the midst of a career change. I don't know where I'm going now. How would you help me?
Well, I would start off by asking you a little bit about your experience.
So ask me.
So, Sharon, why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience? What brought you to this point today?
Oh, just that, my industry has changed, and there was all this interest in doing psychological probing in corporations to help understand their products and services, and now they're going on the internet. They're doing it, remotely. They don't need a live person as much.
Right. So I would ask you what aspects of your job that you really enjoyed the most?
Well, I love talking to people. Can you tell?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I love finding out what they care about and what makes them happy. I love helping them solve a problem. I love solving problems.
Right.
I love creative process.
Right. And had you thought about, have you applied to any other jobs, taken a look at other things that are out there in terms of positions that appeal to you, or are you looking at taking your scope of experience and doing something new?
I was hoping maybe I could create something new, and I'll tell you one reason why is when I realized that this was kind of drying up, I thought, I'm sick of traveling.
Right.
I have lived my life on the road. What could I do? Is there something I can do where I don't have to work for a corporation, I don't have to travel so much?
Right, I would take a look at even starting off by something as simple as a list and saying, what are some of the things that you really love to do and what are some of the things that you want to avoid. So then we could actually build a job around your ideal job and start off with everything from what is the content to how does that make me feel, what are the behaviors that I need to meet that, and even if there are some skills that you don't currently have, what can you do to build those skills in order to meet the requirements of that job. So it could be everything from we've mapped the job, now we're going to figure out how to get you from here to there, and then from there how to market yourself.
And one of the things now I'm back to being Sharon, that I love about what you said is that the coaching process, whatever the specialty is about looking at someone's strengths, seeing where they are, and then taking them to a goal that they...
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody comes to you with their own set of unique experiences and their own strengths. And it's not a question of, from a coach's perspective, it's not a question of telling you what to do. It's more, bringing out of you what is innately in you already, and sort of morphing that into what you're going to be able to use best.
So I'm ready to work with you.
Yay!
How do I get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on the net. It's Jane, Jayne, at myoptimumlife.net.
myoptimumlife.net. Very cool.
Yeah. Or phone number 416-540-5681.
So say that one more time, just slowly.
416. It's a Toronto number. 416-540-5681.
I'm calling.
Great.
I'm calling. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
And let's see. Well, maybe we can. Fran. Okay. The super shapeshifter.
Super
Tell us about
shapeshifter.
you.
Well, let's see. Several years ago, when I turned 50, I got very involved in fitness. Got very involved in fitness, and joined not just a gym but a boot camp. And
What do you mean?
well, boot camp is a little bit more regimented. So you have someone who is the leader of the trainer, the master trainer, and they set up stations of different things that you do. So in one station you might be lifting weights, in another station you might be working on a treadmill, in another station you might be working with TRX, and just different things. And at a timed intervals, you start moving from station to station. And the cool thing about the boot camp is that everyone of any age and gender can pretty much come. The uncool thing about that is that someone who is in their 50s or 60s or 40s can be working out next to someone who is in their teens and in their 20s.
Ooh.
And yeah,
Ooh.
and that's been an issue. So as the boot camp grew, when it first started, it seemed that it was a very average age of like people in their maybe like in their 40s. But as the boot camp grew, more and more young people came in. So the chance of working out next to someone half your age really became a reality. And I started to see people, my friends, getting hurt because they were so anxious to keep up with someone half of their age.
Literally physically hurt?
Physically hurt. Torn rotator cuffs, shoulders knees that had to be scoped, knee replacements that have to happen.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
Not fun.
it's a psyche thing, because what happens is you start to feel inadequate. You feel like you can't keep up. You feel like you're just not the person that you used to be. And I started to really look at it and say, you know what, this gym is really just a representative of society. How many times women of a certain age start to feel that they've lost their mojo?
Right.
They can't keep up anymore. We're not as important. We're not as useful. Our purpose is just not there.
Right.
So I want to work with women of this age group. I want to help them through menopause. I want to help them through the empty nest as their children start to leave, as their lives start to change and their original purpose, whether it be a mother or an executive, as those things change, I want them to still feel empowered and to know that they still have a full life ahead of them. They have a second act, which is like what I call it.
So I mean, I'm in your league. If I
No.
if I came to you, how would you help me?
I think the first thing we would do is we would talk about what affects you the most. In other words, when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, tell me what you see. Do you see?
I see this flab on the back of my waist. And I don't know, why am I turning around to look at it? I mean, why am I bothering myself? But I do, I see that and I go, ugh, I never had that before. Where is that from? I go, oh yeah, hormones are going crazy. Mm-hmm. I want to get rid of that. And I don't want to have to go to a plastic surgeon to get rid of it.
Well, there are definitely ways through fitness and through diet and exercise that, you would be able to get rid of some of it, maybe not all of it. But I'm talking about inside. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? Do you see the beautiful, vibrant woman that everyone who looks at you sees? Or do you see a woman who's no longer 25 years old?
Yeah, that's what I see.
Exactly, and that's the kind and that's the kind of thing I really want to work on.
How are you going to help me?
Well, we're going to start working on some things and some tools to put together to help rebuild your self-esteem. We're going to talk about the events that make you feel that you don't have a purpose anymore. We're going to talk about all of the things that you love, all of the wonderful things that have happened in your life, and how we can take those things that make you happy and turn them into the next part of your life.
It will make me happy to look like a 25-year-old.
Unfortunately, that may not be realistic. But that's okay, because I want you to love the not 25-year-old. I want you to see that you can be even better than you were before. All of that maturity that you've grown into this woman now. So let's take her.
I'm definitely smarter than I was back then.
If you knew then what you know now, kind of thing, right?
I would enjoy it. Oh my God, I would enjoy it so much more.
But you can still be, in a way, even though the mirror may not reflect it, you can still be 25 up here. To some extent.
My husband says I'm 4. You're not surprised, I know.
But that's okay. It's okay to be 4. It's okay to play. And it's actually better for you to be happy and playful.
So how do I get in touch with you?
Please contact me at, it's FB Holinda.
F as in Frank, B
F
as in Betty.
B as in Betty, Holinda at gmail.com.
HOLINDA.
Thank you. And phone number is 732-859-3300.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Please do.
Oh my God, between the two of you.
We'll set you right up. We
I'm
got you
gonna
covered.
rock.
We got you back.
And Cynthia,
Hey, Sharon.
how are you today?
Wonderful.
Well, my 4-year-old might want to come see you.
Good.
I mean, the 4-year-old me.
Oh.
So tell us about you.
Well, I specialize in working with teachers and parents of challenging kids, mostly with teachers. I've been teaching for 15 years. I just resigned as a teacher, but I worked 3 years in New York, across the street from the projects.
Oh, really?
After
How did I miss
9/11.
that?
Excuse-
I missed that. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah, in Brooklyn,
Mhm.
And after 9/11, I decided to move to Florida, and I've taught in a classroom, elementary, for 12 years before I decided to resign as a teacher. And now I'm a certified professional coach, working with teachers, staff development, and focusing on challenging students in the classroom.
Mhm. Why did they need that?
Well, I wondered, why is it that I have such a passion for working with challenging kids? And I realized I was one of them. I was one of those challenging kids. And
How
not so
so?
much in the classroom, more outside of the classroom. So, I didn't have the easiest childhoods, growing up in the projects. So the classroom was a safe haven for me. So I was very quiet in the classroom. I did my work, but I was pretty much lost in the classroom. But then you had the students who came to school and were angry, depressed. Some were bullies, some were being bullied. And what I realized as a teacher, that all of them had a story. All of them had a story, and many of them brought what happened at home into the classroom.
Yeah.
And many of these students were in homeless shelters, and so many of them had to wear all their clothes, whether it be 3 or 4 shirts with a sweatshirt and 2 pair of pants in Florida. And their backpacks
They had
weren't.
to wear all their clothes?
Well, the reason why is because if they left it in the shelter, chances are they'd be stolen.
Oh, my goodness.
And so in Florida, I mean, and I found this out from one of my students. I was wondering why the 2 shirts, sweatshirt, 2 pair of pants, and the backpack filled with underwear. And it was because they couldn't leave in the homeless shelter,
Wow.
And then you have the kid that comes in angry, and when you find out, it's just because he's hungry. He didn't eat breakfast, and chances are he didn't even eat dinner the night before.
Aw.
And then you have the child that's tired because he slept with 2 or 3 siblings or cousins on a bed because they're homeless and they're living maybe with another family, or 6 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment. And so and you have the ones that are going through abuse at home, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, and it manifests in different ways. And I knew that there were, and it's hard as a teacher to teach a child who comes in angry, or depressed, or tired. And I realized you need to find out the history. You need to find out what's up with these kids because they're teachable. They want to learn. They just don't know how.
What do teachers need to know that they don't know?
Well, one of them is, every child has a story, and sometimes we have to look back to when we were children. Again, I had to look at my childhood, and, I knew growing up in the projects, you had violence everywhere, you had drugs everywhere. And, there was a time where I was a product of my environment, and a lot of these kids are. And in order to fit in or to survive, you need to do what needs to be done. And so, unfortunately, that's what a lot of these kids have to go through, even with gangs. In Brooklyn, when I was teaching, you had the Bloods and the Crips. And some of these kids, to pass an initiation, they had to do something. And we're talking about 9-year-olds with weapons that they would bring to school. One of them was, bring a gun to school in 2nd grade and see if you could get throughout the whole day with it and not get caught.
We didn't have Bring a Gun to School week when I was growing up.
Oh, I mean, I remember one time we were in the schoolyard and one of the kids ran up to the fence and, found out it was his older brother, came on a bike and passed something to him and left. And I went up to him and I asked him, "What do you have?" And he goes, "Nothing, nothing." And security guard came, he had a gun. The brother had just shot someone and passed them the gun through the fence during school day. But this was the norm. We didn't, growing up, you didn't know any better. But again, they come to school and they're tired and they're this and they're that. So teachers, as teachers, it feels like our worth is based on these grades. You have the grade, the grades at the end of the school year or test grades, and then you, as a parent, you feel like your worth is based on these grades. And these students who are tired or hungry, their worth is based on these grades. So as a teacher, that's what you want to focus on, getting the math, reading, science, social studies done. But in order to do that, you got to find out why is this child not learning? Why is this child so angry? And one of the things I had to learn is not to take it personally. And also that many of these kids do not trust at all. And so as much as you try, it's not going to happen the first or second. It may take weeks.
So as a teacher, if I'm signing up for your program, what would I learn?
You mean as a teacher?
If I was a teacher.
Yeah, first of all, to know that each person has a history. Sometimes it's on the database, or sometimes it's just getting to know the child upon walking in, or even before. I remember pretty much interviewing my students before the first day of school when they were in the hallway, one by one. And you're not going to get it all the whole week, but you pretty much know the first or second day who are going to be your challenges, and you bring them in maybe as a monitor, and you start talking to them, because the thing is, you can't address it around the whole classroom. You got to do it one by one.
So you teach skills for dealing with the kids to kind of draw out their stories and figure out who they're dealing with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I had another student who was always angry. I mean, could tear up a classroom within the hour upon coming in. And no one could deal with him. He was always in the office, always being getting referrals. Found out that his mother had passed away. 2 years before, they were in a car accident. And they both survived, but 2 months later, she passed. He felt responsible for her death.
Sure.
And he carried that. He had no one to talk to. And then the only living relative, his father, was in jail. So these are things we deal with as teachers.
And so teachers who come to you would be ones who deal with any children, particularly with
any children. Many people think their children, living in poverty. That's not so. It could be anybody. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like to give workshops to teachers on how to deal with challenging students, and I can give them some tools and techniques on how to deal with them, or they'll come with questions of their own.
Do you have a specific tip that you might share? I mean, that was kind of cool, like to talk to them one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other particular tip you might want to?
I would say if you see an angry child, a depressed child, a child who is bullying, there's something wrong. There's something up. There's something that's going on with them in their lives, and find out what it is. They're hurt. Hurt people hurt people. I really believe that.
And so you teach them how to reach out to them and ask the vital questions to help them help the kid.
Right. And also teach them be patient, because it's not going to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It's not.
And so how do teachers get in touch? So is it only for teachers? Is it for parents?
I also work with parents. I work with parents of challenging children, single moms, teaching them the tools. I'm a single mom myself with 2 kids, mm-hmm. and so tell them that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. And many of them will say, oh, I work this job. I have 2 jobs myself. I'm in the military, 22 years of service.
Wow.
It's doable. It can do it. But the thing is, you need to take care of yourself
also. What does being
in
the military bring to teaching?
Oh, wow. It's been a great experience. I actually, in the beginning of the school year, I'm very firm with my kids. It's kind of like a basic training, depending on the class. And the first few days, I'm very firm with them. We go over the rules, and if I don't like what they see, they do it over and over again, and procedures. And usually when I feel like they get it, then I start to wean off. And I normally don't have discipline problems. If anything, I'm the person that people send the children to.
So what is this? Is it basic training for teachers of challenging kids?
Something like. And the funny thing is, the kids love it. They love the discipline, because sometimes they don't get it from home.
The structure. They like having like a little pot to be safe in.
They do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do people get in touch with you?
Email chevrest@yahoo.com. Chevrest is spelled ChevrEstt. Easiest way is Chevy without the Y, rest with 2 T's. @yahoo.com.
Why the two T's?
I don't know. But it's funny. My last name is French, but it's been spelled 3 different ways in the family. That's another story for another show.
Right, right. When I first started emailing you, I think it must be wrong.
It must be wrong. I know.
It must be wrong. Like, why are there two T's? I must be.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Very,
it's-
very cool. So, by the way, everyone, if you have a question for anyone talking, please feel free to jump in. And what about Julie?
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Julie. Tell me about what you offer.
Well, I've been a nurse for 25 years plus, and I am presently working in home care, and my coaching niche is going to be working with families to help support the caregiver, because there is not any help in that area at all for the caregiver. They're just sort of kind of lost, or they're the white elephant in the room that, is really kind of forgotten in the whole process. Of
Support
course.
them in what way?
Well, they are expected, really. I think most people in general, once their loved one has left hospital setting and they go home either from rehab or, to a relative's house, wherever it happens to be, I think the healthcare facility just, expects them to be able to, for the caregiver to be able to just pick up and do everything. And, the nurse will maybe come in and change a dressing, or the nurse from the home care company may come in and, make some suggestions as to, what types of programs that there are out there. But there really isn't programs like funding programs for patients with maybe dementia problems, or folks that have had strokes that, they can't really be at home totally by themselves, but they need some extra help. And that all falls onto the caregiver at home. And there are programs out there that funding sources that can help people to hire someone to come in, so that the caregiver can then take care of themselves and do things that they enjoy doing. I mean, even if it's just to go in the other room and take a nap, or maybe it's to go take a walk with a friend, or even just somebody to sit down and help them navigate the waters of the paperwork itself is so overwhelming. So, and there just really isn't anything out there for the caregiver in that way.
So you kind of help with the logistics of funding, of getting help, of...
Well, I can certainly help with those things, although it will not be the only thing that I do. It is something that that is troublesome to a lot of people. It's sort of kind of a red herring in the process, where people get so overwhelmed by the paperwork with all the stress that they're going through taking care of a sick loved one, and also taking care of children themselves, because a lot of the people that I deal with are women of a certain age, and they are dealing still with children at home.
Why are you looking at Fran?
35 to 55 is a general age, and they're caring still for children living at home, and they're caring for an aging loved one. And the stress just totally breaks them. And so...
That whole sandwich generation.
Yes, the sandwich generation, exactly. And so the logistics part of it is a big piece of it. Getting through that paperwork is so hard, and nobody is there to help them.
Right.
So there's not always a funding source, but even just the paperwork, just to apply for Medicaid or Medicare or any of those social programs that we have, is so overwhelming that a person, even if they're already on the programs, they have a certain amount of days in order to get there. And if you miss that deadline, by 1 hour, you're off that program.
So, there's a situation right now, actually, in my home, well, not in my home, but my mother-in-law broke her hip.
Oh,
Oh my God.
I'm so
After
sorry.
she had 2 heart attacks, literally in the same day, 2 months ago. And last Wednesday, she broke her hip.
Mm-hmm.
So she fell, she broke her hip, she broke her arm, her, eye was cut. And so her husband, who is my stepfather-in-law, will be the caregiver. So if we wanted you to support him, because she's going into rehab and then she'll be there for 6 weeks, and what kind of support would you offer to my father-in-law?
Well, the type of support we'd offer to your father-in-law, first of all, was to give help with some tools to find out where those little spaces of time are in his day that he can care for himself. And part of caring are things which I just explained, either hiring someone to help to take care of by either a funding program that is available. If there are no funding programs available for that, then teaching the tools of offloading and delegating if there are ways of delegating other things that maybe his wife used to take care of, but now he needs to do that, and just sort of kind of making those aha moments for him, to be able to say, oh, I never thought of that. And a lot of times too, it really depends on the age group of the persons that we're talking about. If you're talking about a 35-year-old woman that still has children at home and is caring for an aging person, she is never going to get it until, that she's tired until she breaks. So to have that person, usually it's discovered by a nurse in the home, like a home care nurse will come in and they'll see someone that is faltering, and then they will make a referral to either a social worker, and even those things are limited because the funding sources out there are for a specific thing. They're for the patient, they're not for the caregiver.
Got it.
So it does take a lot of digging to find the funds that are out there, but that's one of the things that somebody doesn't want to do. They don't want to dig for that funding, or they don't want to make that extra call, or they don't want to find
So
out.
would I be the one that would be calling you and say, listen, my father-in-law really needs help? Or like who would be the one making the phone call? Like, is that something I can do?
Well,
Call you and-
privately, I mean, if a lot of people, I don't even know, honestly, if a lot of people would think of coaching in this way. Usually how it happens is that the person comes home, there's a referral that's made either through a doctor's office or through the rehab or the hospital, and then a caregiver association or a VNA is assigned to that person, and they go through that.
Why would I go to you instead?
Well, the reason, it isn't necessarily that you would go to me instead, because those things are all very important. I can't say enough about the different organizations that I've
Or in
worked
addition.
for. But in addition, I think it's just that is something that is solely for the caregiver, he or herself. That time, whether it's to unload a little bit and just kind of talk about, the frustrations of the healthcare system, and different ways of maybe helping him, in your case, your father-in-law, to helping him to be able to figure out ways how he could do things a little bit differently.
And so would I be the one referring you to him, or, like as his daughter-in-law? Or?
Yes, in a private situation, it usually is, it could be a neighbor, it could be a family member, it could be the doctor himself.
And I'll bet lots of us know of people who could use help like that, right? So how do people get in touch with you?
How people could get in touch with me presently is through my email at julhag@hotmail.com.
JULHAG
hotmail.com. And my phone number to be reached is 603-986-1472.
Sounds like a wonderful service, because, I mean, you could just see already, in the hospital, she's complaining because he's not there when she wakes up, and like, where is he? And he's home taking a nap.
Yeah, because he needs that nap, and
Right.
you know, it's sort of kind of like I have to, you know, I want to be really careful about saying this because I certainly wouldn't want to offend anybody of any age. But seriously, when the caregiver is caring for someone at home that is incapacitated permanently or even temporarily, they need to rest at the same time as that person's resting. But who does all those other things that are, you know, going around them?
Sure.
And especially that paperwork. If someone is either, you know, trying to qualify for Medicaid, which is a huge thing to qualify, it takes a long time to do that. You, just one more thing, it just so overwhelming. It just pushes you off
I
the cliff.
mean, first you're overwhelmed by the fact that your loved one is suffering, and then you're
Mhm.
overwhelmed by everything else. So
Right.
what
So
a
I
wonderful
think
thing that you're offering.
I think that what a coach could offer in situations like that is,
Or what you specifically could offer.
well, yes.
Let's hear
I
about
mean,
you.
what I could specifically offer someone is to help with those logistics if that happens to be the particular area that they need me for at that time. My passion is to be able to create a sense of, you know, peace and have the caregiver feel that they are listened to, that they are that person in the room, that they are not invisible.
Right.
My experience with this myself isn't just being a nurse for all these years and in different backgrounds that I've had, but having the experience myself from a very young age of helping my mother take care of my dad when he was 37 years old and passed from Hodgkin's
Oh my
lymphoma,
gosh.
and she was taking care of myself. And, you know, even though I was a teenager and I was helping her, she still was my mom, and she was still taking care of me and taking care of my younger brothers. And I stepped up and became the man of the house pretty quickly. And it was a lot. And once my mother, after my father passed, and, you know, all that whole, if anybody's had that experience, that whole letdown piece of it, okay, that's over now, and everybody else goes away, and there you are, still there, and you're, you know, you're stressed out, you still have these kids, now you're got one less paycheck coming in the house, and you are,
Going down.
yeah, you're going down. And the side effects of this for people, which are huge, because then they become sick if they're not caring for themselves. My mother
Right.
suffered irritable bowel. My mother suffered, esophageal reflux disease, and just things like that that come out of stress. They're just the symptoms.
Sounds like
They're
pure
real
agita.
things, but they're the
God.
symptoms of other things. And you just sort of, you know, become this sick person all the time. And so to have somebody even just listen to you, and not in a therapy, you know, in that typical therapy kind of way, because that's not what I'm offering. But what I am offering is a way for someone to look at that and say, okay, not just, you know, move on and get over that, this is what you've done now, but to give them the tools to lift themselves up and to feel good about themselves inside and know that they have been heard.
Sounds like a blessing to have that.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, what about Dolores?
Hi, Sharon.
How are you?
Good.
You have like an amazing story. You have to tell the story of your
The
5-year-old.
little 5-year-old.
Yeah,
marketing
I love that story. Yeah.
Well, you know, um, I don't know any other marketer that can say they had paid clients at 5 or 6.
She did. She actually did.
But if you could picture in your mind's eye a bunch of little kids laying on the grass, kind of watching the sun going down on a tropical island where I was born, and then in the end of summer, that's the situation. I was there with a bunch of kids doing that. We had little change in our pocket, waiting for our version of the snack truck, the ice cream truck, to come by. And I sort of saw one of the kids that was there cutting out some paper figures, those little paper things that you cut out. And a short time later, I had persuaded the rest of the group, after constructing a story, putting some words in the mouths of these figures, and putting on a show, persuading these kids to spend a penny of their money to sit in the audience and watch our show, and 2 pennies, 2 cents, if they wanted to sit in the front and use their parents' flashlights to flash upon our sheet, which was our makeshift, screen. So we got a projector for free. In fact, we made money out of that projector, the screen. And so my paying clients, 5 or 6 years old.
So, I mean, what just knocks me out about this story is that not only did they pay you 2 cents, a double of what the people who were watching, but they worked.
That's right.
They paid you to work.
And they felt privileged to do it.
I can't wait for you to help me in my business. So how does that translate to today? What do you do today?
Well, the lesson I kind of stumbled on there, I didn't really appreciate until years later, after I got my degree in marketing. And I had some experience, some adult experience in marketing. But I figured out that I really like to make sure that people got paid for their ideas. And I've been doing some version of that really all my life, And currently I help health and wellness experts and entrepreneurs to do just that, get paid for their ideas. And because of my experience with my husband, he had a massive stroke at 50. Yeah. And so I understand the importance and how valuable a health and wellness message can be when it comes at the right time.
Right.
But I also understand the importance of making sure.
Are you going to take her number, Julie?
But I understand the importance of making sure that health and wellness message, that the person who offers that message gets paid. That's important too, and so that's what I'm all about. I'm all about making sure that I help these experts get their message to those who can benefit from it most, and who not only want the message, but are able and willing to pay for it.
And so you said something about finding their message, their mouth, and their voice.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
Sure. Now let's go back to that little 5 and 6 year old scenario again. Right? So the message was, we were all sitting around bored, right? So the message is, we don't have to be bored. We could do something about it, Even if 5 years, 6 years, we could do something about that. And so the mouthpiece that we used to get that message across was the play. I put on that little play. And the voice I used was the voice of a 5, 6 year old, because that's who I was. I didn't try to be an adult. And that appealed to the other 5 or 6 year olds. And so I really want the experts and entrepreneurs to do the same thing. I want them to get clear on what is their message, what vehicle or mouth are we going to use? And there are various kinds, right? You can use the internet, you can use radio, you can use public access TV like we're using here. Some are brochures, even the business card. I mean, there are a lot of mouths that you can use to get that message across. And I think the most important message for me is, use your own voice. You've got to figure out, who you really are. That's what has to come through, because ultimately that's what's going to sing in the ears of the people who are willing and able to pay for it.
So cool. Are you going to hire her?
That's after me. First.
I don't know. Maybe we don't want to give out your contact information. We want to keep you for ourselves. So how do people get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach me at, my first name is Dolores, so use that first initial D, middle initial A like Apple, and Edelen, Edelen @gmail.com.
So D-A Edelen, Edelen @gmail.com. Why did your mother give you a middle name of Apple?
No, it's Angela. My first name was Dolores, and I guess this is why words are so important to me, and kind of messaging is so important to me, because my first name was Dolores. And I had a problem with that because in Spanish, Dolores means pain.
I know that.
So I had this
Oh, no.
complex.
Don't tell me A is for.
No,
No.
no, A is for Angela.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
Oh.
And so I asked her one day, well, why did you name me Dolores? Am I that much of a pain to you? And she says, no, you're an angel who removes pain.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so for health and wellness experts and entrepreneurs, I want to remove the pain of getting their message out there.
I may have to
that's
call you
beautiful.
Angela from now on.
Well, my family calls me Angie. You're welcome.
Oh,
It's okay.
DAEdelyn@gmail.com. Oh my gosh. Well, so over here is Renee.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Renee.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
There's a joke about that because in running a group, Jen was teaching, we were talking about group process, and Jen was saying that a wonderful way to grab everybody's attention is just to stand with your arms open and wait until they notice you, and then bang, you've got their whole attention. So, and you've welcomed them and you've encompassed them, and thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And there was Renee welcoming us. So,
There we are.
Speaking of
tell us
angels.
about you and what you do.
My passion is healing and reconciliation through conflict, nailing the conflict management, and relationships. So for people who get up in the morning, sometimes they dread getting up in the morning. They dread meeting certain people during the day. And it's not because of the production or because of the job itself or because they don't enjoy mothering or being married or going to various circles in life. It's because there's conflict, interpersonal dynamics that get in the way of being productive, having a voice, speaking their message, even having it delivery, reading and achieving a goal, for example. And also it interferes with legacy, how they wish to actually live and incarnate their purpose of life, let alone discover their purpose of life. And so some of them that I've dealt with, whether it was in the Middle East or for the many years, whether it's in a hospital bed or in a school, women's club, people who've achieved much money, but somehow they're empty and they're hurting inside because there's a relationship they're not at peace with. There's bosses that they are caught in between two corporate leaders that have different political visions or missions. Or you're in another situation where each department are so jealously in competition with each other, and instead of collaboration, they're fractured. And it gets in the way of actually building. So there's destruction rather than construction. So
What happened in the Middle East?
Well, in the Middle East, I was born with this ache in my stomach where they're suffering or at people at odds. I wanted to help bridge the gap. I wanted to help network and bring people together and help facilitate healing, reconciliation, conversation. So in the Middle East, I decided to accept a position. You had to go through some screening to go in a peace mission for several months. So I was in various parts of the Middle East that's off limits to tourists or pilgrims, some areas. So I had to get my affairs in order because literally I was willingly, freely and willingly putting myself on the line, my life on the line, because it was such a fire in my belly that I had to be about doing this.
When was that?
99.
And so what happened?
So I had my funeral arrangements made.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had all my affairs in order, made sure my mother was taken care of and different things in place. And I went off and I settled in Israel. And I went and I met different people. I stayed at a particular place. And I would have a passion for anyone, Christian, Muslim, Jews, and different diversity within those particular major religions, to find out and to reach what is central and core to all humankind, regardless of religion, regardless of gender, regardless of culture or economic status. Doesn't matter who they are. The core, everybody has a core of wanting peace. They care for their families. They care for their life. They care for quality. They care for integrity. There is a core in everyone that we are unified in. And that's what I was zeroing in on.
Now, who did you do that with?
I did it with a variety of people from different parts of the world. So I worked with some Jewish people. I worked with some Muslim Palestinian people. And how I did this was I was set up, kind of like went visiting to places. And I took some risks because I went on my own. I separated myself from the group. I wanted to get a feel for the people. I wanted to get a feel for their heartbeat, for their minds, so I wanted to learn from them. What do you need me to understand about yourself? What do you need me to understand in terms of what is your heartache? What is your goal? What do you wish? What is your legacy that you would like us, me, as an American woman, to understand?
So you spoke to them individually?
So I took a crash course in some Hebrew at UConn, and I took a little crash course at the Hartford Seminary in Arabic, and trust me, it was not easy. Then I had to tell them that I'm learning your language, I'm learning your language. So with my broken Hebrew and my broken Muslim, Arabic and my piecemeal of French and English, I tried to engage in conversation. And luckily, my humility and my multiple mistakes put me in good stead.
Can you see this? I can see this.
Because
Yes.
I ended up being approachable. And also I was safe. Okay, I was safe. I dressed appropriately because my first concern is they saw I respected them. And I expected that their gut instinct could really detect that I care. Because I did. And their trust in me was indeed well placed.
So what was the outcome of working with these different groups?
So what happened was I had, this group would say things about this group, this particular group would tell me about this particular group, and it wasn't good. So I'm listening underneath it all, body language, words, and I said, they want the same thing. They want to live their life in freedom and truly in harmony, without worry about competition, without worry about their lives and their families are going to be endangered. What they really wanted underneath all this ugly and dark was peace, was a chance to reach out and
so how did you do it?
For you to understand how I understand myself.
How did you do it?
So what I did is I went to you, and I went to you, and I used,
Not her.
and what I did is I took advantage of the fact that I knew in my heart of hearts that they really trusted me, that we connected on the heart place, not just on the intellectual, but on the heart, gut place, on that instinct place, intuitive place, in you as well. So I says, how about, I'm going to throw this out to you, and I'd like to invite you, and I will be present, if we could meet at this particular safe place. And I know they had to go through checkpoints because there could be some real serious, dangers there. So they had to work that out. And then I said, we can have some dialogue, conversation. We have foods that are appropriate, that they're common. Some had to be kosher, so we had to be mindful of that. And then, of course, as Palestinian, how you would feel comfortable. So what we did is we had a very gentle, I introduced, and they wanted to make sure I was going to be there. They weren't even going to come till I knew they saw me visibly up. I was present.
What do we do now? I'm getting nervous.
So I introduced, and you introduced one another, and then I asked a question. Now that you're free, you're safe, No one's watching you. You know, what is it that, and I'd ask them questions about their fear. What would you like to share with them? What would you love to see? Say if you were going to die tomorrow and your lives were at stake and you're living in this fear. What would give you most joy and most sense of peace and harmony within you? What is it in your cries of your heart that you would like her to understand, him actually, to understand, and for you to understand about yourself?
And what did they say? Briefly, what did they say?
That way they didn't want war. They wanted equal opportunities for education without having it, you know, like one having the cutting edge, the competitive edge over the other. They wanted to be able to have the same type of books.
And what was the end result?
Type access. The end result was they wanted to find a way where they can come together more and bring some of their friends and have a little more conversation and hook up with, I met this.
I'm not hooking up with her. I'm
No,
sorry.
but I met this. I hope we can do this safely. But I met somebody who worked in a military capacity, who was very friendly, American ally friendly. So there's no danger. It's all peaceful. That somehow they would help both sides communicate, and that's when we got some universities and churches and synagogues involved to Akshav, Shalom Akshav, peace now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like Shalom and Salam, you know, like Palestinian Salam, peace, Shalom. And that was the one goal that they had to be true to, was peace. And they had to come up with ways that are appropriate for their particular situations on how they're going to enflesh peace.
So let me bring it back to right here, right now, just
Yeah.
because we still have some other people and I want to make sure. I'm having a conflict with my daughter. No, I don't have a daughter. I wouldn't mind having a daughter. I don't have a daughter. I'm having a conflict with my daughter. Would that be appropriate to bring to you?
It would be, depending on the age of your daughter. If it's a child, then...
She's 22.
Oh, well, that's easy. I would spend time, I would meet with your daughter alone,
Mm-hmm.
if she is willing,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd have some conversation to help her name for herself what her place of challenge is.
Okay. What if
And then for you,
I get it. So you do the same thing for me,
Yes.
and then we would do like you did with the
Facilitation.
Muslims and the Israelis, okay?
facilitations.
What if I am in an organization, and we've got these two groups and they're not getting along?
What I do is deal with leadership. I go to the leadership because I would need to be welcomed and invited.
Mm-hmm.
And then before I'll even venture to accept this, I would need to very clearly, the leader needs to name and be a willing cooperative person that this is what he wants, is to bridge the divides, heal, corporate healing.
Mm-hmm.
So he would name for me, or she would name for me, the real vulnerable areas, the weakest link
Mm-hmm.
of this chain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we would target. And I would tailor and design appropriate to that particular context and those particular dynamics. So I would spend time listening, and it's deep listening, because I'm not interested in the company's how their product.
That's why they call you Laser Lady, for that deep listening?
Well, they tell me that's what I do. So I'm interested in the interpersonal morale. Some people have caused tremendous havoc to the bottom line because they have stepped out of their integrity core. They've compromised. They didn't trust enough, risk enough to trust their inner gut instinct.
So if you had there was something to your secret sauce, one tip, because then we're going to move on, one tip for people getting along better, what might it be? I know you have many.
There's many, but the one is you spend quiet time every day really listening to your interior self. Self-intimacy is critical. And if you're of a person of faith or spirituality, of whatever it is, be true to that.
And what if you're not?
If you're not, then you're going to need to find what appropriate ambiance or atmosphere for you, and it's going to take work. So we can find that. We have to process that in terms of where you're going to really hear your deepest and connect. Get from disconnect to really connect to your essence.
Because if I listen to myself on a very deep core level, then
There's multiple selves.
if I listen to them, what
the
happens?
truest, that discernment is critical.
And what will happen if I do that?
Well, then you really become generative. You truly, effectively make a difference. Your quality of life and your circle of lives. Different circles of your particular life, whether it's with your daughter, whether it's with your marketing, whether it's with your teachers, whether it's with your vision quest, yours with caregiving, and yours with women in that.
So wherever
particular
there might be a conflict,
exactly,
if people can get in touch with their true
then we can
essence,
process it.
then you can help them get together.
We can process it in a real way, not sidestep.
And how do people get in touch with you, Renee?
Rasmar Cares. R as in Robert, A as in Apple, S as in Sunshine, M as in Mary, A as in Apple, R as in Rainbow, C as in Cares, A as in Apple, R as in Rainbow, E as in Excellent, S as in Sunshine, Rasmar Cares @gmail.com. My phone number is 914-486-1743.
Very clear.
And if you need to really get in touch with me, Sharon knows how to do that. And the other coaches do too.
I just go, Renee. And she appears, and she just appears. What about Jen Ryan?
Hi, Sharon.
How are you?
What about Jen? What about me?
What about you? What about that hair? Where'd you get that hair?
My beautiful friend April at 26 on Hanover is where I got this hair.
So tell us about you and what your specialty is.
Well, my specialty is working with a salon professional. I've been in the industry for 26 years. There's nothing I can think of in our industry that I haven't done, everywhere from owning a salon to being a stylist, managing a salon. I have worked for Redken for the past 10 years. I started out as a full-time educator, teaching color, and then I realized my passion was really more into the business end of it. I felt that I could touch more people. It really doesn't do you any good to know how to do hair color if you don't have any clients, if you don't know how to manage your clients. So I really enjoyed the actual helping salons run their salons business-wise, helping stylists grow their clientele behind the chair. I was extremely fortunate at a very young age, or young in my career, to have a woman kind of take me under her wing and mentor me. And I know how much that makes a difference, having that person show you the way. I've seen so many salon professionals just work so hard, so many hours, and make a lot of emotional decisions and put everything into it, but they don't really know how to run a business, or no one really taught them that. Again, it doesn't do any good to know how to do hair really well if you don't have any clients coming in.
Right. I mean, that's what we talk about with coaching, right?
Yeah.
What good is having a coaching certificate if no one's knocking on your door?
Right. Right, and it doesn't mean that you're not great at your craft. It just means that, maybe you don't know how to build a clientele. Or, I've worked with many salons all over the country, and, I've yet to hear a stylist say, oh, I love selling shampoo. Well, no, we don't love selling shampoo, but what you do love to do is take care of that guest. And, you just spent 2 hours of your time giving them that beautiful red hair. But we need to know how to take care of those beautiful curls and that red. And that's really a part of, the customer service, the customer care of it. I think that we all have a story where we went to get our hair done and the stylist talked about herself or himself the whole time. Or I loved my hair, I loved my experience, but they didn't ask me to purchase the products. I saw the products, but I kind of thought those were for somebody else. Or,
That happens all the time.
yeah,
I mean, both of those things that you're saying, where I go there and I want to relax, and I find myself like, so tense. Even though my hair came out great, but the experience wasn't wonderful, and
Right.
I don't have the product to keep it up.
or vice versa. I had a great experience, but my hair is just meh, okay. So, it's really packaging it all together. And, we go to hair school, cosmetology school, and we learn enough to pass state boards, and then we get out there and we buy into this dream. We buy into this dream that I'm going to, play beauty school, and, we all love to do that. But nobody really teaches us how. So whether you own a salon, or you are a booth renter, or you're a stylist working for a salon owner, nobody gives us the tools, the script, learning how to grow our clientele, work much smarter than harder. That really, for the stylist, I don't want to do 10 clients a day. How exhausting. That's 10 hellos, 10 goodbyes, 10 conversations. And are those 10 people coming back? I would rather work on 5 people and give them everything that I have to offer. When I talk to stylists, I love to use analogies, and I love to paint pictures. And one of the analogies that I always use is a restaurant that I like to go to. And I paint this picture of, I go to this restaurant, and it's like, Norm at Cheers. Everyone, hey, how are you? And by the time I even get to the bar, my glass of wine is waiting for me. And I always say to the stylist, is that good customer service? And they always go, well, yeah. And I go, really? What if I didn't want wine? Right? Well, if I don't want wine, but you just poured me this glass of wine, and I'm not gonna say I don't want it.
Right.
But so often we pre-think for our guest because
Right.
we think we're doing the right thing.
Right.
So basically, at the end of the day, I could go on and on and on, stories upon stories. Really, what I love to do is I love to help the salon professional really find their true talents, find their goals, and help them set goals and obtain goals.
And to understand that customer, because I think most people would have thought, oh, how cool, my glass of wine is waiting for me.
Right.
But
Yeah.
But what if
Right? No, and it is, and it's coming from the heart. Right, and it's coming from the heart. It's not.
But how do you tell them to pour it out?
Exactly.
Because I was really in the mood for red today instead of white.
Exactly.
Right.
So I always tell people, when I want good customer service, I just don't go there. And that sounds kind of crazy.
In your opinion, what would have been better customer service?
The better customer service would have been to obviously greet and be excited to see that person, and not to assume. So often we assume we know what our guest wants.
Right.
Right? Is to really, and as I always say, give them the whole menu. Tell them what the specials are. I may never order the dessert because.
But I love to hear what it is.
Exactly.
Show me the card.
Exactly. If you use the analogy of a restaurant, and you think, I'm going into this Italian restaurant for spaghetti dinner, and my waitress comes up, and she takes my order and she gives me my spaghetti dinner. There's nothing wrong with it. Spaghetti's fine. And then, everything's great, and it comes on time, and the food is hot. But I see this other table over here, and they're laughing, and they're having fun, and they're ordering all of this stuff, right? Because their waitress told them about the special.
Right.
And she described it in a way that I'm like, oh my God, I don't even eat eggplant, but I'm going to eat the eggplant because it just sounds so good.
Yummy.
And then, I'm full, and, do you want dessert? No. Well, let me just tell you about it. And all of a sudden, my table now has, 3 desserts with 5 different spoons for,
Right.
and oh my God, I'm full, but I just love the taste of that chocolate. And the next day, you're still thinking about that chocolate, right? Even though you're full. But what happens was your experience is different, right?
So it's about the experience.
It's about the experience. It's about the customer service. And me as a salon professional, my paycheck is going to be better, right?
So if I, as a a professional in the industry came to you, how would you help me?
Well, first of all, I would figure out a couple different things. But first and foremost, I would want to know what your goals are. Because some stylists have the goal, you get out of cosmetology school, and some people want to be on stage someday. I've had somebody say to me, I just want to be on stage.
Like an onstage?
An onstage educator. Okay.
Okay.
Some people want to work in a mom and pop salon.
Got it.
Some people want to do only color, or everybody has, the beautiful thing about the salon industry is you really can write your own script. I mean, I have done everything there is. I've traveled all over the country.
So
I've
what are you going to help me
educated.
do?
What I'm going to help you do is I can help you find out, first of all, what your passion is, what your goals are. I can help give you scripts. I can give you a roadmap, a plan, a way to look at your clientele and build the clientele that you have. Take the clients that you have. Maybe you only have 3 clients today, but let's figure out all the different things we can offer those 3 clients and how we can take those 3 clients and turn them into 6 clients.
So this might be me as a stylist. It
Yep.
might be me as a salon owner who's trying to
Yep.
build. Sounds awesome. It
Yeah.
sounds awesome. I want to go to whatever salon you work on and improve. So how do people get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me by phone. Area code 802
802
238 1897.
238 1897.
Yep. Or you can email me at 1jenryan@gmail.com.
1Jen Ryan, RYAN.
Correct. Yep.
At gmail.com.
Yep.
Oh gosh, just so awesome. I'm getting fixed in all kinds of ways. I just feel amazing. And Eileen has got, I saved Eileen for last because she's got a really remarkable story. Everyone here has had a remarkable story. Eileen's is one that's really heartfelt. And you know what I didn't think? I didn't think to show the YouTube right now, but maybe we could show it, tack it on to the show.
Sure. So my name is Eileen Benthal, and I am a certified professional coach that specializes in coaching for caregivers. And the time that I became a caregiver was about 18 years ago. My youngest daughter, she's the youngest of 4, and she was born with a very large mass on her brainstem. We didn't know that the mass was on her brainstem until she was about 3 months old. For the first 3 months of her life, over that time period, I instinctively knew that there was something wrong with her. I just knew that she just wasn't right, and I would pray and sense that I had to trust my instincts, that there's something was wrong with my baby. I was taking her back to the doctor for the regular checkups, and I'd say, something's not right, and they'd say, well, she's got a little bit of a head tilt, she's this and that, but nothing that really would send us to further testing, although we had great doctors that were going to follow up with us. So in that time period that she was, between birth to 3 months, I started having these nightmares. And honestly, I'd never been through like a postpartum depression. I thought, maybe it's part of that. I don't know. But the nightmares were...
And this is your 4th child?
This is my 4th child, yeah. So the nightmares were I was out in the middle of the ocean, and I was holding my newborn baby and treading water out in the middle of the ocean. So it was dark, there was no land in sight, it was just her and I out in the middle of the ocean, and it was terrifying. I would wake up, covered in sweat and just be really like, oh, and then go on the day with this instinct that something's not right. So finally at 3 months old, she, her soft spot, babies have those little soft spots, her soft spot started to bulge, and that's when we realized that there was some kind of pressure on the brain, because when there's pressure, that happens with a baby. It's almost like a little outlet where the fluid pressure can start to come. So we ended up, at that point, we went right to the pediatrician. The pediatrician sent us right to the emergency room. The emergency room, they sent in a neurologist to examine her. And sure enough, they confirmed that there was hydrocephalus, which is fluid on the brain. And I remember the neurologist turning to us and saying, we have to get a CAT scan of your daughter's brain because she does have some kind of, fluid buildup, and we have to find out why. And so I said, well, does a CAT scan, I'd never been in this whole world before, and I said, does a CAT scan show a brain tumor if there's a brain tumor? And the neurologist looked at me kind of quizzically and said, yes, it would show a brain tumor if that's the cause. So they put her into the CAT scan machine. My husband and I were waiting outside. And a few minutes later, the doctor came out and confirmed, my deepest instincts. I didn't know specifics, but I knew something. And they said that there was a very large mass on her brainstem, and it was compressing her brainstem. And then he invited us in, and to this day, I'm so grateful for that opportunity, because it was the beginning of bringing me into learning how to advocate for my baby. So he brought us in, and he showed us the CAT scan of her brain. And as I looked at the CAT scan of her brain was covered in fluid, was covered in cerebral spinal fluid. And it looked like her brain was covered in an ocean of water. And at that moment, I thought of those nightmares. And I realized that what was happening in my subconscious and in my dreams was a warning. I was being prepared. And at that moment, as crazy as it sounds, I felt relieved. I felt like, finally, my baby's going to get the care that she needs, and I'm going to get the help that I need to help her. And so that was the beginning of our journey. In the first year of her life, she had 6 brain surgeries, because after that first brain surgery, we understood that, that we were told that she couldn't handle the fluid by herself in her brain. So she has multiple shunts in her brain. The shunts go from the brain to hers go into her heart to drain the fluid from her brain. And in addition, she developed a very rare genetic illness that causes malformations in the brain called CCM3. And this rare disease causes these malformations to grow and to hemorrhage. So when they hemorrhage, it's like having, little strokes. So she's 18 years old now, and she's had 91 surgeries.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, she's a pretty remarkable lady. She's got, just great hope. She's cognitively and physically, impaired and impacted because of this. So while she's 18, the mentality is more, as a younger child. She requires assistance daily. She requires 24/7 care. She suffers from seizures as well. So it's an ongoing thing. And so we continue to care for her. I would have loved your help accessing all the paperwork and the programs, because that's part of, the caregiver's job is, you need to advocate for your loved one. She was about 8 years old when I had another dream. Actually, the nightmares continued, continuously. And actually, sometimes they would change. Sometimes we would be out at the beach as a family, and there would be a tsunami that would come in, and all of us would be swept out. It was always the same theme for me. I was holding my little daughter, Johanna, and then maybe grabbing the next one, my daughter, Mary Angela, and my husband would be trying to grab the other 2. So it was always that same kind of theme of the struggle of the tidal wave coming over. And so at about the time when she was 8 years old, the dream changed for me one night. And one night I was out in the middle of the ocean, holding Johanna in my arms by myself in the dark ocean with no land around. And I heard God's voice speak to me. And God told me that I could let go. I could let go. That I was in the ocean of God's mercy. And that I would feel like we were drowning as we let go. But that as we felt like we were drowning, He would teach me a new way of breathing, how to breathe underwater. In that very moment, and actually a little thing happened the next day. It was the first time Make-A-Wish had given my daughter an above-ground pool. It was the very first time that she asked me from the pool deck. I was standing in the pool, and she said, "Mommy, I want to swim underwater. Can I jump in and swim underwater?" She didn't have any swimmies on or anything. And it was the very next day after I'd had that dream. And I was like, okay, she jumped in, and I'm watching her little body just swim to me, and I embraced her when she came in, and I was like, wow, if that isn't a sign that what I experienced the night before was, this is what's going to happen. You're going to learn, So that dream, it was very interesting, because it was a positioning change for me. It was an attitude change, a perspective change that I had always, over those 8 or 9 years, had the perspective that I wanted to find meaning and purpose in the suffering that she was experiencing, that we were experiencing. And it's just kind of, it's part of who I am, is to see the blessing in the midst of the difficulties. But it was a defining moment and a change in that, and realizing that I could let go and learn how to further deepen and develop these coping skills and these strategies as a caregiver, as a mother. So over the next few years, over the next 10 years, I've learned to not only articulate and well, I've worked on it primarily for myself. That was the first thing, is the first strategy is really seeing, you know, that analogy that they use on an airplane when they give you all those instructions, the first thing they say is, you know, if that oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself. Well, that used to bother me with my other 3 kids. I'd be on the airplane thinking, oh, no way, I put it, but now I really get it, and that's my primary concern for the caregiver, is put the oxygen mask on yourself. So honestly, the first person that I take care of in our family is me. I'm the first one. I have this little time carved out, 5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning. That's my time. I take care of myself. I spend time with the Lord, and I exercise, and I walk, and I journal. That's a really essential part of my growth. So over these years, I've learned that breathing underwater literally became like a roadmap for me, and I developed an analogy and a program for caregivers based on the acronym BREATHE, BREATHE. And through those things, I use the strategies of the first B in BREATHE is belief. You have to find some core belief, as you shared too, something, I have my personal faith, and you have to find your center and your essence of a greater being that you turn to. In the R, it's restore. Caregivers and families who are dealing with chronically ill children and parents and spouses, it's important to find ways to restore relationships, restore finances, restore the brokenness in our lives and the broken dreams. And part of restore is to rest. It's to rest. That's a very important strategy for caregivers. And then the E is to engage. Naturally, a caregiver and someone under that stress wants to pull back. They want to withdraw, So I teach them to engage, engage in your own passion first, and learn how to engage and start to connect with those you love so that you can have deepened relationship and passion. And then the A is advocacy, learning to advocate first and foremost for yourself, and learning skills to advocate. I've learned strategies and how to deal with talking with doctors. I've learned how to understand radiology reports. I've learned how to...
This is a woman who could be an MD without the degree. Right?
Well, you know what? I made a decision in that I either had to learn some of the language, just enough. I say I know a whole lot about a little piece here, just enough to advocate for her. Yeah, exactly. Right. I was a specialist. So, and then the T is to take time. Time is very, very important. Take time for yourself, time for your spouse, time for your children and family, but time is extremely important to the caregiver. And the H is hope. I really want to share with others that there is always, always, always hope in the midst of the difficulties. And sometimes you can go to bed feeling like, oh, but in the morning, wake up with hope. Wake up with hope. And finally, the E in the last part of breathing underwater and breathe is...
endure.
Endure. Thank you. I'm like, where did I go here? Thank you. I'm so glad you remember my program, Sharon. So endure, that's really what it's all about. A lot of people said to us at the very beginning, just keep your head above the water. When you're a caregiver and you're dealing with 18 years and it's an incurable illness at this point, there's no cure for this. And is that depressing? On one level, yes. On another level, have to find the way to endure. Find the way to continue on. And so I work with caregivers to teach them endurance.
So if they wanted to see that movie on YouTube that you showed us.
Yes, we actually have, I do have a website called CARE, C-A-R-E, the number 4, caregiver.com. So it's care for caregiver.com. .com.
And on there is that video?
Yes, there's a couple of videos, but that's one of them. Yes.
So there's a video of Johanna at different ages with Eileen, and Eileen is singing. Eileen has got an incredible singing, right, doesn't she?
She does.
It's a really delightful thing. I wish that would be a great way for us to end the show.
There's no tissues.
I know.
I
So
know.
when you get prepared, because it's going to touch you, you're going to cry. But what an inspiring story, and what an inspiring group of.
That's a message I like.
Yeah. And this has been a very inspiring group of women. And I guess what I really want to tell everybody is, I had no idea the show would go this long, but it was really worth every single second.
Yes.
That there are people who can help you with all different parts of your life that you probably haven't even thought of. Like in recent years, I started writing a book, and I was struggling with it, and I got a storytelling coach. And so I have a coach that helps me write. And I have a coach that helps me with nutrition. And I have a coach that helps me stay productive when, I get stuck in my ADHD or whatever, and I'm not getting anything done and I'm spinning my wheels. I've got a productivity coach. In addition to the normal coach we all think about, like a fitness coach, I have one of those too. But sometimes when you need help, there are resources. There are specialists that have had life experiences that can make all of our lives better, right?
Yes.
So if you have never considered a coach, something you might want to consider. And so thank you for being with us today, and thank all of you for your wonderful stories and your wonderful talents.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks.
We pray for blessings, we pray for peace, comfort for family, protection while we sleep.